This is the Patriots Prayer Podcast. It's a tremendous show, one of the greatest shows in the history of the world.
This is Bryson Gray, and you are watching the Patriots Prayer.
Soon on the Patriots Prayer Network. Thank you all.
America's falling, they all say. Gather the faithful now and pray. The Patriots Prayer. The Patriots Prayer. All the wicks are trimmed, oil is filled to the brim. I haven't changed yet somehow. I'm the radical now. America's falling, they all say. Gather the faithful now and pray. The Patriots Prayer.
What's going on, Patriots? We're going to end up our week with a week in review, and we got a surprise guest for you today, Mr. X. Now, Mr. X comes to us with an abundance of information. Now, let's talk about some of his credentials, guys. He's a brief bio here, and Mr. X has years of experience in undercover journalist, having worked for Project Veritas, as well as having years of research as an investigator and undercover operative for notable clients. He joins us today to share the surrounding details of an important story such as the Ashley Biden diary story. Are you here with us, Mr. X? Can you hear me?
Yes, I am. How's it going?
It is going very, very well. We're getting ready to go see the Ravens play in a few hours.
Nice.
It's the
Nice.
Sunday ritual. So, but we spoke on the phone. We've talked about this story quite some bit, but before we get into that story, let me ask you, have you been watching the news and have you been seeing all of this talk about kill teams in the United States going after Trump? Matt Gaetz says DHS released to him that there are five separate kill teams in the United States. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, and some of the details you kind of filled me in on beforehand, but if you know, you know. Yeah, it's kind of confirmation for a lot of us of what we already knew.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to a very interesting interview with let's see this guy's name. I keep forgetting his name. Oh, Eric Weinstein. I keep wanting to say, yeah, but Eric Weinstein, very important interview where he talks about the sort of international world order that is dependent on various treaties and understandings and agreements, and how, the political system in America, specifically the two-party system, is designed to weed out populist candidates like a Trump. And even though they did everything they could to prevent him from getting in through the media and through, other means at the ballot box and at the polls, he came in. It was a fluke in 2016. And they are determined to not let that happen again. That's just a fact. It's so abundantly clear that these assassination attempts are not lone wolves. And I think it's funny, just as a side, and I don't want to divert from your greater point, but can you imagine if Kamala Harris or Barack Obama or I don't know, Hillary Clinton had two assassination attempts, the constant drumbeat of the danger of radical far-right extremism and the rhetoric that incites violence. The media would be on an incessant, constant drumbeat about the dangers of people like you and others who have a voice in conservative media and how you're inciting violence. We've had two assassination attempts on a former president, and almost not a word, as like just a week after, well, not even a week, a full week, I don't think, after the second attempt, almost not a word, not a peep.
Yeah.
And so it's just indicative of the fact that, yeah, our media is an arm of this octopus, this monster, and the monster is the establishment, the international world order, and they will stop at nothing to prevent Donald Trump from getting in. And the fear is that, I mean, look, I think if you ask people on the street, the real polls would reflect that Trump is far ahead, but they're going to manipulate. They're going to do anything that they can to prevent that from happening.
Yeah.
They'll stop at nothing.
The mockingbird media, as we like to refer to them, love to try to pull the wool over people's eyes and try to make people think that Donald Trump is less popular than he actually is. That's what the optics of putting all of the content they put online for the Kamala rallies, where they were using AI to fill in seats, and in other cases they were busing people in. But these people, I me being a Christian and all, and you are as well. Jesus said, "We'll know them by their fruits." Right? We'll know them by their fruits. She's having people like Megan Thee Stallion open for her rallies.
Yeah.
I mean, this is very telling of who these people are. At the DNC, they essentially had a man out front doing child sacrifice right in front of the DNC. Like it was a novelty to kill children and abort them in the womb. And just most recently, just on a side note, if you noticed in Georgia, the media immediately just were out there torching Trump over the reversal or the returning of the Roe v. Wade and the rights of abortion to the states. And they put this story out that this woman couldn't get an abortion, and as a result of her not being able to get an abortion, she passed away. Well, come to find out, she didn't die because she couldn't get an abortion. She died because she drove to North Carolina and got the pill, and her body reacted badly to the pill, and she lost her life in the attempt of aborting her child.
Wow.
So, they don't put as much effort into correcting their stories as they do putting their stories out. But I digress. We are going to dive into this whole deal with Ashley Biden's diary, right? I've seen it on National File. We've talked about it in detail. The left likes to pretend that diary doesn't exist. The left likes to pretend the things that are written in that are taboo and not true. And all too often, what they do is they like to throw generalities at us, very vague. That's a lie, but you can't say why. They're not specific ever, right? It's a bunch of vague generalities, vague platitudes from these people. They really don't care about this country. They care about power. And so what I'd like to do is try to paint a picture for people as to the actual evil these people embody. Would you shed a little light on us? Just the floor is yours. Just let us know exactly what you know, and as much as you can tell us of the story leading up to and what is in this diary, and what was your maybe involvement, as much as you can tell about how we got this diary, how it came to us.
Well, absolutely. And let me start out by saying, of course, the left, their persecution of those who expose kind of what's going on has a chilling effect. So the intimidation, the whole goal of intimidating journalists and whistleblowers and truth tellers from within the government is to basically discourage them, right, from feeling bold and free to speak. And this situation has died down a little bit. Anyone who was involved in sort of exposing it kind of blew a sigh of relief when things kind of died down. My goal certainly isn't to rouse the hornet's nest.
Yeah, I think that you're with Biden not being the nominee right now.
But the left is vindictive. The left is hateful, and trust me, I'm not afraid. I fear God alone. My point though is just to sort of set this up is my goal isn't just to rouse the hornet's nest. My goal is to tell the truth, and so yeah, so the Ashley Biden diary, as many of you know, some of you don't know, the daughter of former President Joe Biden had a diary, and through a series of events, it landed at Project Veritas. And was the goal of the team. There was a team of people who were sort of put on the task to confirm its veracity, right? Because we didn't want to just run with something for the sake of being the first to break the story. Like we actually,
Sure.
the
Being
goal was,
first and being right are two different things.
yeah, or just for the sake of harming who you believe is a bad political candidate. We don't like Joe Biden, therefore anything negative about him. That's what the left often does. I hate it when conservatives do that, because I think that's beneath us. We should
Correct.
always care about truth and accuracy. You don't want to just repeat something because it hurts the guy that you don't like. So we were on the task to find out whether or not it was true. Through a series of events, we confirmed through Ashley Biden's own words that it was her diary. And what made this diary particularly interesting is that it reveals, and I want to, man, this is an awesome opportunity. It reveals several things. It reveals that, like Hunter, Ashley has a lot of emotional and psychological and spiritual problems. The Biden chronicles her sex addiction, her and she wrestles in her diary with a lot of those issues. But what was dangerous, I think, to the Biden campaign at the time was that she posits a question on one of the pages. Basically, why am I so overly sexualized? Why am I addicted, essentially, sexually addicted? And she mentions that she took, in her words, inappropriate showers with her father as a young girl.
So what
Now,
are the can you enlighten me on something? So everyone has a different, and I've heard different ages. What did the age range did that take place in?
from what I recall, she doesn't necessarily give an age, but I mean, we know she wasn't a baby. I mean, it's not uncommon for a for a parent to maybe shower with a small baby, but
Yeah.
we know that she's not a baby because you don't put a baby in a shower typically. Babies take baths, right?
Babies
So
aren't
she had
writing
to,
diaries about it either.
yeah, and also babies don't have the recollection of that. So we know that she had to at least be old enough to take showers, to stand up in a shower, which is very awkward as a man and a father for me to have my little daughter like standing in a shower with me. It'd just be strange.
Wow.
And we also know that she was old enough to remember. Now, we can give all kinds of excuses. For those on the left, I would just caution you to use equal weights and measures when judging Biden, the same measure or standard that you would use to judge. Now, had this come out about Trump, and there were all kinds of claims that he was into his daughter, the left would love to say,
Oh yeah. They tried to
was
say
checking
the
out.
same about Michaela when he was saying some things. They tried to say it's the same about a lot of folks.
Yeah, but we don't have anyone in Trump's family, any of the females in Trump's family, saying that they felt he did anything inappropriate. In this diary, we have, Ashley actually saying that her father took inappropriate showers with her. So that's why it was deemed dangerous. Now, I want to let you guys in on a secret. I was on the phone call when James O'Keefe opted not to run that story. It had nothing to do with our inability to validate it. The real reason is actually vindicates us even greater, makes James, I think, look even better. You want to know, because we did validate it, and later on,
Well,
after
I got this right here. Can we just take a second to play a clip real quick here?
sure.
So I found this. I just want to preface this. This is a phone call of Ashley Biden calling Project Veritas,
Yeah.
and this is the recording.
And I don't mean to. I don't want to have to get Secret Service involved in this, right? Because it's a whole process. But I am Ashley Biden. It is my stuff. So if you could just skip all of that over, I would really appreciate it. I know you sent a picture to my husband with a camera and a few other things that are mine as well. So that would be really great. Where is a good place for him to meet you? Point, and I don't mean to. I don't.
So there it is in her own words. She's verifying that that's hers. That's her stuff. That is
Yeah, yeah.
her
So we had
diary.
it validated. So later on, when the three-letter agency raided James O'Keefe, a couple of my colleagues and some of the other people who were involved in simply trying to validate the veracity of it, we were also many of the people at the organization were debriefed. This is what you do, and this is basically letting us know this could happen to you too, because our colleagues were getting raided. We didn't run that story. And I'm gonna tell you, James said it was because we couldn't verify it, but you heard that phone call. It was verified. The real reason is James felt bad for Ashley. When you read this when you read the diary,
I've read
guys,
it. I've
can I
read
say
it.
this? Yeah. When you read the diary, you get a picture of a woman who's very emotionally distraught, is addicted to narcotics, uses sex almost to get away, and couldn't keep relationships, struggled with infidelity, struggled with a lot of emotional trauma. And James felt like between the team that it was just kind of cruel to kick someone like that and potentially push them over the edge into psychological breakdown. Now, who does that? Like, look, there was a lot of, and I don't want to divert into what happened at PV. Perhaps we can have that discussion one day at another time. But at Project Veritas, of course, there was a split. It's not as simple as people think, and it's also not as deep as people think. I was there for all of it. I saw how it went down. And a lot of people might say James was hard. Sometimes he was rude, but he did look. We're human. Human beings are really complex creatures. He certainly had a heart, because a lot of organizations would have just said, let's run with this story. We'll be the first. A lot of news organizations just care about being the first to report it.
That's right.
After some deliberation, and I'm sure it wasn't just him, but it was a team, but they decided, look, this diary is kind of sad. Who would rejoice at this? Now, putting this out there is going to open up all kinds of emotional wounds. And we just decided, look, by all intents, from all appearances, based on the phone call, this is her diary from her own lips.
Mm-hmm.
But do we really want to do this to this person? And to me, that was the higher road. And I think many of the people in the organization felt, no, we should release it because ahead of an election, it's important that people know. But there was that sense when you read the diary that this is an extremely, I mean, it's easy to it's like low hanging fruit. Sure, you expose that and you make the candidate look bad. But ultimately, the person who's really going to have to deal with the trauma of having all that dirty laundry aired would have been Ashley. And so there was some consideration for her humanity. It's crazy, and some people may not agree with that, but there was consideration for her humanity. The last thing we wanted to do, and we had several, let me just tell you, Eddie, we had several investigations like this where we had gotten some amazing content, some really important stuff. But we found out that the person that we were dealing with, the subject, had maybe psychological issues, emotional issues where they could be pushed over the edge into maybe,
Sure.
We had one guy, one subject who struggled with suicidal thoughts and some mental health issues, and we decided not to run it because at the end of the day, who wins if someone kills themselves because they were embarrassed by a story? That's not anything we wanted on our conscience.
Sure. No,
So
and this is a less of a reflection on Ashley and more of a reflection on Joe himself. I actually have the fact check right now pulled up from Snopes, and the fact check just asked the questions like you see there on the screen. It says, did Ashley Biden call childhood showers with her father probably inappropriate and leaked diary? And as you can see, even Snopes has to admit this story is true.
yeah.
It came right out of her own mouth. But there were more going on in this diary, I assume, than just those showers.
Yeah, and real quick, let me say make another point. It's so telling. If you want, I've heard this said multiple times, and the older you get, the more true it rings. If you want to know about a man, if you want kind of a snapshot into the character and integrity of a man, you look at his children, you look at his family,
Yeah.
and that's why, like in certain religious settings and congregational settings, people don't want a pastor or a rabbi or whatever over them whose own house is in disorder, is in chaos, is in disarray.
Yeah.
Joe Biden's two surviving children are a mess.
Yes.
They were drug addicts, both of them. I mean, it's one, sometimes a
Both
family
sex
might have,
addicts. Both drug
Both
addicts.
of them sex addicts, both of them drug addicts. And I mean, what really made kind of Ashley's claims of inappropriate showers even ring more true is some of the footage you see of Joe sniffing hair and touching inappropriately young girls specifically. He certainly seemed to have a type that he kind of, would like a very odd behavior for a man to be sniffing a little girl's hair and holding them and putting his arm around them in really inappropriate ways. So in light of all that, it gave,
multiple times,
yeah,
and
multiple times.
stories of kids rubbing his hair on his legs, and just very inappropriate, really odd behavior, very creepy.
Yes, and obviously, needless to say, if Trump had behaved that way, and again, if such a diary existed, there would be no mercy. There would be no mercy, and there shouldn't be mercy. There shouldn't be mercy for that kind of behavior. That we should we should scrutinize for the sake of our children. We should be out to protect our children. So I wanted to say that, but yeah, there were more things in the diary that were really disturbing. And again, for that reason, and maybe I misread it, but on the call that I heard with the team when we decided not to run it, what I heard more than anything was compassion. And it was so strange that we in the organization wound up being persecuted by the government for not running the story, but for simply coming in contact with the materials. When out of compassion, we decided not to run it. In my opinion, that's what I heard, and maybe I misread. Maybe it was because even though we verified it, it wasn't verified enough. But what I heard on the phone call was a lot of, you know what, this person is not right. We might feel like we scored a point to put this out there, but how's it going to affect Ashley? And if Ashley hears this, or anyone from the Biden campaign, or someone who's sympathetic, I would say, look, and the conservative movement is definitely not, even though it aligns with biblical values, it's not a Christian movement per se. There are atheists. There are, people of various religious traditions.
Yeah, it's not a monolithic group. It's not.
Yeah, it's not. But I will say this, as a believer in Scripture, there is hope for Ashley, hope for Joe, even in his demented, deteriorated state. There is hope in the gospel. Repent and believe. You can be set free from your addictions. You can be set free from your bondage. I just want to put that out there to anybody who's struggling with addictions, that you can be set free, that Jesus the Messiah offers us freedom. And I don't hate my political opponents. I don't hate the left. I greatly disdain their manipulation of truth and the facts, and many of their policy ideas I think are very harmful. But this doesn't come from a place of hate. This comes from a place of wanting to preserve what is right and wanting to expose corruption. By the way, at PV, we were not, and many people just saw us as a right-wing group. There were times we exposed, Republicans.
As we should. Keep in mind,
yeah.
when they came at us and they said, hey, Dick Cheney and George Bush and Liz Cheney, all these guys are going to support Harris. We were like, we told you the entire time. I've never liked George Bush, Dick Cheney, any of these guys. I've known they were globalists from day one. They're neocons. They're not conservatives. I think that the people on the right, the real folk, the actual conservatives, we care more about our values than we do a party. For instance, this is why I never say I'm a Republican. I vote conservative. Now, with that said, not everybody on the right is a conservative, but everybody on the left is an absolute leftist.
Yeah.
That is a fact.
I mean, when you advocate for the things that the left advocates for, honestly, I don't see the new left, the new Democrat Party, the pillars of their party, the Marxist pillars of the new Democrat Party is almost a sacrament to them is the deletion of children. That's number one. And then secondly, LGBTQ without boundaries, just the promotion and normalization. And if those are things, even if you call yourself a believer in the Bible, if you can cast your ballot and put your energy and money and support behind that, there's not a thing on this planet that you can judge morally. To me, you have forfeited your right to make any moral judgment. So as deplorable as you might feel like Trump is and anything he's done, it pales in comparison. Even racism, which is their favorite sin, the only sin that matters to them is bigotry. Even if he was a racist, that pales in comparison. It infinitely pales in comparison to deleting a human life's potential, the right to just see a day in the sun the right to behold a piece of art and hear music and love and to be loved, when you squash that potential in from a human soul,
Yeah.
their right to be able to be born, racism is a distant, not even a second, third, fourth, fifth. That's like the number 10 sin behind deleting innocent babies. I don't know if it can get any worse than deleting innocent babies. So,
I don't think that there's really much. If you take a look at the history of just on that subject, Planned Parenthood, look at folks like Margaret Sanger, and realize that the reason why there are so many abortions in America is because of racism.
yeah.
That's how
But
this all
and
started.
I say this as someone though who very much has a stake in that debate. Even the race, as interesting as that is, that's the least important. Because look, I'll be honest with you. A lot of things, I've traveled the world, I've been to African countries, I've been to the Middle East. You will find tribalism, racism in Africa, right? And in the Middle East. What you will not find in Nigeria is the promotion of deleting babies, and you will not find the normalization of hacking off children's body parts and
in like
calling it
places like Liberia, where they still have homosexuality is illegal.
exactly. You won't find gender affirming care. So even that thing that the progressives claim to care about, the rights and the voices of brown and black people, you go to brown and black countries, they will chase you out of their country, promoting the weird and bizarre things that the new Democrat, I have to differentiate, even though I've never been a fan, the new left especially is maniacal, and they have gone way beyond, they have transgressed the boundaries to a degree that even Democrats in the 1950s and 60s and 70s would never have imagined that they'd be where they are now. They've
Because
lost
now
their
they're
mind.
not practicing their political point of view. They are practicing a new religion.
Yes.
That new religion, you have to take the things they say on faith. A man is a woman because he thinks he is. A man can have a baby because you're redefining gender by what this person feels, thinks, and believes. So, in fact, it is a religion because you have to take everything that they are saying is real on faith and then walk it out. So, what we're looking at here is truly a spiritual battle, a battle of values and ideas, except for ours is rooted in reality and in truth and is provable. Everything that they are pushing on their side basically kowtows to someone's feelings and actually exacerbates mental illness to a point where we have seen multiple school shootings and people die over the last several years, and all by people who used to identify as less than 1% of our population. Now, when you have a demographic that is only 1% of our population, and for years has only grown at a rate of 1 to 2%, and within the last 4 years of President Biden's cabinet, have we seen that number increase to 5%?
Yeah.
Why would that happen? Because it's happening because at the school level, I believe the teachers are asking children questions and then feeding the answers. Essentially, it's indoctrination at the school level. This is why I advocate for folks who believe and that are actually believers and want to make sure they have a stake in what their children believe and what their values are, is homeschool. Keep your kids home, because the moment they go out that door, the values that you hold dear to as a parent may not be held by the school you send them to. And this is a religion, and it is evil. It's absolutely evil. We can say that the sin is evil, but yes, we're called to pray. Absolutely, we are called to pray. But one of the things that we really need to understand is that the left are in league with these evil spirits. I completely believe that what we're seeing is demonic, and that we are in those times. As a believer, I have to look at what's going on in Israel and in the world, and it's very hard not to. You'd have to take a logic leap as a believer to believe that this is not the time and day of the Lord fast approaching.
Oh, for sure, and I would love to do it. By the way, for more of these conversations, I do join my co-host Clarity Speaks, and that speaks with a Z, for the Politics and Religion podcast, kind of a new endeavor that I'm involved in. And again, her name is Clarity Speaks, with a Z, not an S. Speaks with a Z.
And they will be joining us on the Patriots Prayer Network, and will be that'll be very, very soon, guys.
Yeah, and I mean, thank you, brother. And our goal is to. I have a lot of tales from within the undercover sort of circles that I've been in. On the other side, being around some of the think tanks, organizations, and players. Wow, some stories. I have a lot of stories to tell, so I'll be sharing those as much as I can until.
Sure.
And my goal is to eventually be able to. I want to get to your point, but I just want to let the people listening know my goal is to eventually be able to kind of come out of the shadows and really be who I am. But right now, because I continue doing some of this work, I have to protect my identity, because, there are people who certainly would love to see me dead I'll leave it at that. Yeah. I've been involved in some of the stuff that's made its way to the Senate floor, and a lot of this stuff has resulted in consequences for some of the people that were found, that were exposed for fraud and corruption and malfeasance. So
let
those
me ask you go into situations like that, dealing with very powerful people, who have not only the ability to do the things that you're saying, as far as maybe your life be in danger, maybe whatever, right? But you do it anyway. You do this knowing. What's your motivation behind going into these situations, and what is the mentality? What are you thinking as you're going into these situations?
Well, you certainly don't get into it to make a name for yourself. You certainly don't get into it for credit, because when you're doing undercover work, clandestine style journalism, you don't ever really want to be known. It's anonymous. You like, even at PV, I submitted my work. And I had a lot of great stuff, but I submitted it to the team. They, edited it, put it at, not deceptively edited it. Obviously, you don't want to see 5 hours of me sitting with someone and talking. So they would edit it as a visual piece. And all these claims that it was deceptively edited are pathetic, unproven. That's just what the left does. They just make statements, and they know that most people, a lot of people, I should say, aren't going to ask questions. They're just going to believe whatever the mainstream tells them. Everything. Look, we told stories honestly. We didn't put words in anyone's mouth. You saw the lips moving. You saw the person and heard the person saying it. Back to the point. Yeah. So the mindset is, you can't go into it for glory, because there is no glory. You'll walk, I remember one story that I was a part of that was big news. And I remember going into a restaurant and watching the news, and it actually came up. And I realized and no one in that place knew that I was a part of that.
Right.
They had no idea. And honestly, it's okay with me, because that's not why.
I was going to say, I mean, did you feel like saying, hey, I did that? Or
no.
What runs through your mind when you know the anonymity behind what you do? It has to be more of a moral victory. And it has to be, I guess, and tell me, I'm just trying to characterize the mentality of people that do what you do in general. That's kind of a thing where you got to, I guess, between you and your maker, and you got to say, okay, that God, I did that. And the reward that I'm going to get from it isn't going to be by the guy sitting next to me, or the clout, or the media, or the clickbait and people knowing my name. It's going to be because I did the right thing.
Yeah, that's it. It's a sense of justice. I mean, and there is that little bit of a temptation you wish you could tell someone, because
of course.
Yeah, we as humans, we love glory, and oftentimes, sadly, we want the glory that's due God alone. I think having a firm, solid faith in God, and realizing this is His story, and that we're all just extras in His production,
right,
is a great it's a great perspective to have.
A lot of people tell the potter what to do, right?
That's right. And I think a lot of the people in these environments, in this line of work, they do want glory, unfortunately, and sometimes that muddies the water and it makes things sloppy. But I think if you keep,
what happens,
it's just human nature, man. It's human nature. It's what we do. Apart from God's, intervention, if we're left to our own devices, we're going to do what humans do. But I think if you keep that motive, so I think, man, for me, it was a strong sense of justice. a strong desire to see the corruption and the lies just be exposed. That's it. That's what drives me, man. Expose the corruption, expose the lies. And I don't care if it's a Democrat or a Republican, if it's untrue and there's fraud and you know it, not if it's untrue, but they know it's not true and they're still saying it, or they're doing things that are deceptive or destructive. They're endangering. Yeah.
There's definitely that.
So that's what drives me, man. But yeah, I mean, I've been in some situations, I got to tell you, you find yourself in scenarios and around people, heavy hitters sometimes. I mean, names, I could tell you names of people I've been around who everyone would know. And you find yourself also behind the lines with people who are very dangerous. The work that we did and the work that some of us continue to do is not just, like that's why the journalism aspect, I really do think that's done on the back end. Really what we do is we infiltrate and we get people to tell us the truth. That was my job. And
you're a soldier.
That's what I mean, in some ways, without fighting. But I mean, you put yourself, I put myself in a
soldier, but for the people.
Yes. It's intel gathering. That's what it is. And a lot of it was and is very dangerous. But when you're driven by a motivation to see the truth come out, you it's a thankless job in many ways. And sometimes, just like, I'd read the comments on some of the videos and people say, well, nothing's going to change. We would get results. We would get people losing their, but at the end of the day, they're just going to replace this person or whatever with another one just like them or worse. And so that even when you're doing the work, sometimes you get plagued sometimes with that idea of, why am I doing this when it's not resulting in the kinds of justice that I want to see? But at the end of the day, we know
extremely hard when you put your all into something. You go gather a bunch of intel on someone, maybe a political figurehead, whatever, and you feel the people should absolutely know XYZ, and here you are holding the bag, and you can't get anyone to route that information to expose these people. Or when you put the information out, the media plays it down, acts as if what you did wasn't true, and devalues all your work. I mean, that's got to be demoralizing. I would imagine that. I mean, I would be extremely frustrated. That's just speaking for me.
Yeah. Or the media calls you a liar and says, oh, this is deceptively edited. They're looking out for and I got to say, I would love to I've met some of these media people, sometimes under pretenses that where I couldn't tell them what I really thought of them. But some of these people, I want to tell them what cowards they are, what liars they are. They don't care about the truth. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
To your point, you're driven by that sense of justice. For me as a believer, and I firmly believe this, God has been good to this country. The good, the bad, and the ugly. America's an amazing place. Our history is amazing. Our contributions to the world, in the sciences, in music, in art, in quality of life, the medical advancements. When you look at what we've done as a country in this short span, and the redemptive story of much of our history, how so much that was wrong because of the introspection that you find, the introspection that you find in our culture that you don't find in others. For example, in India, the caste system there has been there for thousands of years.
But see, right there, Mr. X, the caste system in India. If you go to India, all the people there are Indian, right?
Yeah.
So they don't have the diverse culture that we have. So they find other things to fight about.
Yeah.
The caste system. It's a social class system. You can only marry within it. Your jobs are limited by it. But I'm sorry, go ahead. I just wanted to.
Yeah. And they're based on like family links and almost like clans.
Yes.
But you find that, but America, like you find other cultures, they're not as introspective. They're more steeped in tradition because America was always pushing ahead and introspecting. And the Christianity, the Christian tradition had a lot to do with this, but being introspective and self-critical. America righted a lot of its wrongs, fought and in a short amount of time. I mean, a couple hundred years is not a long time to change the things that we changed. And we did it radically, and our contributions to this world. But at the same time, from my vantage point, and if you're ever interested in having this talk, I would love to. America has turned its back on the God that blessed it.
Yes, absolutely.
And look, I'm not sitting here as a holier than thou. I fall miserably short of the glory of God and the expectations of God on a regular basis. It's his grace, and I'm not worthy of his goodness.
No.
Certainly not worthy of the Messiah dying for my sins. But I also have an eschatological view that sees things racing toward the ultimate pinnacle of human history and the human story, which is the return and exaltation of the Messiah. And prior to that, I know from prophecy, which I trust because God has been 100% accurate with all of his prophetic promises, that we will reach a time, much like the one we're in now, where people will be left to their own devices. They will do what is right in their own eyes. Governments will unify in an almost
sound doctrine and
yeah
believe that well, we see it today. We see it in the Lutheran Church and the United Methodist Church,
like the days of Noah. Yeah,
exactly like the days of Noah. And depending on how far you want to take that, more so than people realize, because in the days of Noah, if you take a look at it from the book of Enoch, right, which they consider an apocryphal book, but it's quoted by Jesus. It's quoted several times in the New Testament, in the Old Testament. And so I tend to believe the veracity of this book. I tend to take it very seriously. And in the days of Noah, it talks about how the angels came down and mated with human women, and they bore to them giants. And you'll understand during that time, men's flesh was corrupted. So the DNA of man, what made us men. That's why the Bible says that the 8 that were saved were the Adamic race. Those that were like Adam, God had to kill all the rest that were impure and only kept those around. So what we just saw with, for instance, the vaccine, what they tried to tell us was it actually turned out very much to be gene therapy, mRNA. There is gene therapy. So when we start corrupting the DNA of mankind and this sort of thing, and it plays right into a days of Noah thing, depending.
Can I take you a step further? Think about this. Based on that, the story of the Nephilim and Genesis 6 and the corruption of mankind. They were creating, when you look, there was in the Dead Sea Scrolls a book which was very interesting, a scroll called the Book of Giants. And they were basically, it says that it kind of buttresses the story that you find in Enoch and in Genesis 6, says that these fallen ones, these
the watchers,
the Ne Elohim, the watchers, that they created also monstrosities. They created giants and monsters, is the way it's worded, and abominable monstrosities. And I'm not saying this to disparage anyone, because again, I think even with the vaccine, what they maybe intended to do, God is greater, and he's the restrainer. The Holy Spirit restrains, and when God says time's up and the restrainer's removed, that I believe is when things really hit the fan. But when we have a culture now that's inverting, and forgive my language, but inverting penises on young men and turning them into fake vaginas and hacking off the breasts genetically, maybe not genetically modifying, but even surgically modifying the human body. That is very Nephilim-esque. Beyond that, we have all kinds of genetic, experimentation going on in labs all around the world. I mean, we don't even need evil spirits, malevolent spirits, to be doing the genetic manipulation. We have scientists.
What's behind it is an evil spirit. So
it's absolutely demonic. All of this. Listen, of this.
Ishtar was the goddess of gender fluidity, and which later became known as Baal. You see,
look at Baphomet. It's the goat-headed androgynous demon deity with breasts of a woman and male parts. It's just if anyone wants to look up an image, approach with caution of the Baphomet, you can see it's this androgynous demon with both male and female parts, and that's that. I mean, so we're in days like Noah. I mean, the transmania is just one, and absolutely evil demonic entities behind this. Absolutely. I do believe ultimately it will be possibly, and only God knows, the days of Noah thing. I mean, it could be a return of the Nephilimic type creatures. there's talk of like, and I believe personally UFOs are very suspect. Are they
Yeah,
the
I don't
disembodied
believe they're
spirits?
aliens from another planet. I believe
No,
they're either angels or demons, and that's
just
backed up by Daniel. When
yeah,
Daniel fasted for 3 weeks and the angel came to give him God's message, he had to do battle with the prince of Persia in the second heaven, which would be space. So he's
yeah,
literally depicting an image of an interstellar battle that took
yeah,
place between an angel and a fallen angel, just for this angel to bring a message from God to Daniel. And again in Ezekiel, with the wheel inside of a wheel inside of a
yep.
wheel, the book of Enoch goes, even Jesus when he left and was taken up into the cloud. These are all things that when we take a look at them are also really easy to misconstrue with the language they had back in those days. That they didn't know what to say for what we would
Well, and
call
beyond that,
UFO today.
the physics of the spirit realm are different. The spirit realm is not bound by physics of gravity and others.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
when Jesus ascended into heaven, I mean, he essentially just floated out of this world into heaven. He was no longer bound by those physics, and these aliens, which I believe are disembodied or non-physical entities, but probably more malevolent spirits, evil spirits. Because and the reason I say that, at least a lot of the encounters that people have when they speak to them, the message is always to demean the person of Jesus, to exalt man to a place of godhood. The lie in the garden, right? You can be like
sure.
God. It's essentially the
You can be
message.
like God because you can know what he knows.
Yeah, but yeah. So, but to my point, I see the world we are careening, and I would love to delve into that sometime, even on a personal level, just the two of us. I
Sure.
would love to, but I believe we are careening. I mean, within years, months, possibly away from entering that final, era, that final, not even an era, not that long of a time, but that final few years before which the Messiah returns and establishes his government on of peace universally, and also heaven and
Absolutely
earth
agree.
ultimately. Yeah. So because of that, man, like it does now. Some people would say, well, if it's all gonna go down and the Antichrist and all this, like, then why do you fight? I believe it is incumbent upon good people, and I don't think myself is particularly good, but God's people, those who have been redeemed, those who know what's good, to fight the good fight. I don't think we should sit down on our hands and say, "Oh, we're waiting
That's
for
the
the
problem
Lord."
I have. That's the
Yeah,
problem I have with American Christianity. And I
yeah,
say American Christianity specifically because, like you just talked about in Africa, where they have a
yeah,
more traditional in Ethiopia, where they have a more traditional hardline Christian, villages and place where they
yeah,
actually believe this stuff and they walk it out and they do their best to live it. Of course, they're humans, but we have a version of Christianity which tells people in a lot of cases, shh, don't say that. That's not none of your business. Stay to yourself. Stay quiet. Don't tell anyone about Jesus. Don't walk out your Christian life. Don't impose your views on other. All of these things. But I look at the disciples, the apostles, and even John the Baptist, who Jesus, God called the greatest prophet of all time. And I remember the scene of Herod coming by with Herodias in the caravan, and John didn't just say, "Hey, that's none of my business." John said, "You're sleeping with your brother's wife,"
yeah,
and called him
yeah,
out. Stephen was stoned to death, not because he was sitting quiet and not telling anyone about Jesus and minding his business. John was dipped in tar. Peter was crucified upside down. I mean, none of these people were just being quiet and living their own lives and minding their businesses. That's not what they were doing.
yeah,
They were progressing, pushing the line for the kingdom of God and letting people know, what that entailed. And a lot of times that meant that the people in authoritative positions felt attacked because they felt like by God getting authority, they were losing theirs,
yeah. Yeah,
which
they
is
were speaking the
ultimately what
truth.
led to Jesus's demise or his crucifixion.
Yeah, yeah. They spoke the truth, and when you speak the truth, there is consequence. And connected to that, when you expose the truth, I mean, that's what my job entailed. There's consequence. Hence, the government comes after you. They try to, like I said, it has a chilling effect. They try to squash dissent. My
Yeah.
my my encouragement to the people out there: look, man, speak the truth. Stand up for righteousness. Stand up for the truth. I'm so encouraged even by non-professing Christians lately who have had it with feeling like they have to be silent, with being, I mean, I'm talking celebrities in recent days who were just saying, like, Janet Jackson's coming under fire for her statements about Kamala
I never
just
heard this.
today.
What did she say?
Yeah. So she basically just said, look, I've heard that, like, Kamala's not black. Like, she's Indian. And
Wow.
so she's coming under fire for that. But that's how she feels. You know, Mike Tyson, I think back in the last election, said, yeah, I'm voting for Trump. What are you going to do about it? And then
he said,
I saw today. He was on.
I forget what radio show he was on, but yeah, he says, like, what do you? I think he was talking about
the Breakfast Club, I think, or something like that.
Wasn't he talking about big? He was at Hot 97, I think. When he
Hot 97. Yeah. You're right. And then he was just on Cameron and Mace's podcast today. I saw it, and him and Mace said, yeah, we're voting for Trump, and that we want him to win. And like, people are, they don't care. Yeah. Well, Mace, you know, I have people that are connected to him. We're kind of like 1 degree separated. I pray he grows in his faith. But yeah, he has a professing faith, and he's not. But like a lot of people, back to that point of just speaking the truth and not caring and not trying to be politically correct. Even unbelievers right now are like, have had it with the constraints of political correctness, you know, muzzling them. Yes. If you are a Bible believer, especially, we should be even less concerned with what people think of us. Speak the truth, speak it plainly. Do not mince words. Yes, and let the chips fall where they may. Because
I tend to think back to the beginnings of this country. And before I get into that, let me take a quick break, Mr. X. I'll be right back after these messages, guys. Take a second.
A movement that transcends politics, a vision for a stronger, united America, built on the belief that financial empowerment and political engagement can come together. Introducing the Trump token, America's cryptocurrency, a digital currency that embodies the spirit of innovation and the strength of American values. With a pledge to donate significantly towards Donald Trump's 2024 campaign, America's cryptocurrency. Coming soon. Visit thetrumptoken.com to learn more.
Since the beginning of time, all living creatures rely on the sun's source of natural light to grow and to help promote overall wellness. We are all light beings. The patches are all natural and drug-free that uses the body's own natural light to help promote general health and wellness. How it works. Simply place the patch on specific points on your body and where the patch is placed on your skin. It reflects back into the body when it's tapped into its own flow of natural energy, which in turn creates the GHK-Cu copper peptide, which rejuvenates your cells and gives you a more younger, healthier you.
So listen, Patriots, as we age, we lose a bit of energy, right? We lose a step. Of course, it's not our fault. Our bodies are changing as we grow, but those phototherapy patches rejuvenate your cells, and in your skin, they play a key role in the aging process. Research has shown that as we age, the number and function of these cells decline, which can lead to a decrease in skin elasticity and lead to wrinkles. But what if there was a product that could restore that spunk for more than just your skin and have other benefits such as more energy, better sleep, reduced stress, pain management? Get yours today. If you're interested, go check them out. They're at miraclehealingtherapy.com. That's miraclehealingtherapy.com. So back to this. So like I was saying, our country, when it was birthed, the reason it was birthed was all due to God. People wanting to be able to worship in the way that they saw fit. And there were a lot of brave men early on that had to say this was worth dying for. Not only is it worth living for, but it's worth dying for. They didn't have a lot of the creature comforts back then we have now. Matter of fact, they didn't have most of the creature comfort, or any rather, than we have now. So I tend to think that they were braver back then because they were more immersed in the society they had to live in. Today, we live in kind of a fictitious make-believe world where we're surrounded by things that are hypnotizing us and drawing our mind off the focus for things that are actually important, right? For TV is a very good example of things that actually hypnotize us and make us try to make us think the things that those who want to tear us down want us to think, such as when they release news stories, they present it in such a way to elicit a specific emotion or feeling from the individual in an attempt to essentially brainwash them. It is a giant psyop. So I don't think we have as many brave people that are willing to step out right now as that we should. But I think that once people are pushed into a corner where they can't back up any further because they just want to be left alone, and they realize, hey, we have no way out of this corner except through the people who put us here. And by that time, God knows what it is that we'll be fighting against should that day ever come. And are you in line with that way of seeing the world as it is right now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm listening. I'm just amening. Go ahead.
No, but it's reality. We lost a lot of people in wars early on, and the left likes to or tends to focus on a one segment or demographic of the population, even as far back as the beginnings of this country, and then neglect the other side that doesn't meet the values or the values that they're trying to put on the evil, because there's always an evil side to every society. There's always two things. There's always a yin and a yang. And they like to say America's beginnings were racist. They weren't. America's, this and that evil and this evil and imperialistic and colonialistic, all of these other things. But, through every piece and portion of the history they can point to, we always have a counterculture that's there fighting against it. So America has continued to take steps in the right direction. Benjamin Franklin says slavery was a stain on the soul of America. The Republican Party was created as the anti-slavery party. One person from New York went down to Texas and switched parties to win an election. And they said the party switched. Not true. Not true at all. And the Democrat Party has not changed their values from the time of the Confederacy till now, until right now. And I can say that because the way they manipulate people by using race to do it, because they get them in their feelings and then they present something that sounds like a fact. And then people are like, yeah, but they're being manipulated and they don't realize it. And then there are people that are in the Democrat Party that know full well they're manipulating people, but they're making a lot of money and they're knowingly and willfully lying, such as Maxine Waters, for instance. Yeah. Maxine Waters put out statements saying that Trump people were going up into the hills and training to overthrow democracy. I mean, she got a call and they threatened her life, and none of this is true. But what is true is that she paid well over $250,000 to her daughter in a misuse of campaign funds. That's true. But the other things that they do or say, they know they're being evil. So there's the ignorant, the people who don't know they're being manipulated. And then you have the people that are being manipulated, that are doing the manipulation, and they know full well what they're doing. They just don't care. And I believe those people are folks like Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, AOC, Maxine Waters, and the like. That's a long list. I tend to think people like John Lewis. You remember John Lewis?
Oh, yeah.
He passed away 2 years ago, I think now. John Lewis he marched with Dr. King, right? He was there during the civil rights movement, but in his later years, he is a Democrat, which is not in line with our faith at all. And it's very easy to prove that. It's a very small search of scripture. You can prove that. But people would say, well, if that's the case, then why would a prominent black man from the civil rights movement be a Democrat? And I leave that up to you. I asked you that question because I like to seek perspectives and what people think. And it is a conundrum. So how do we answer such a conundrum when we see people that should be one way, but they're not?
I think we had this discussion on the Politics and Religion podcast, episode 1, that I think the people miss the underarching theme, the consistent theme in which the Democrats have not changed. And this is what ties the new Democrat Party to the slavery party. This, and I give credit to my associate Dinesh D'Souza for this. He did a
I
great
love
job.
him.
Yeah,
All the way
and-
back to Obama 2016, and he's went to prison. He's paid his dues to tell the truth.
absolutely. And he did a great job of highlighting this, and it's so true. When you look at the plantation, it was a Marxian, of course, prior to Karl Marx, it was communism essentially. You had Big Brother, the slave master, the slave owner, the plantation owner, and they provided the housing, albeit poor housing, food, reproductive care, even everything was under the oversight and commission of the Big Brother. And that's essentially, that hasn't changed. The Democrat Party is the party of the overseer, the government. They will give you free health care. They will give you living quarters. That's communism.
That is communism.
Slavery was a form of
Go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say slavery.
Reagan's quote when he said, "A government big enough to give you everything you need is a government to take away, big enough to take away
it away."
what you have."
Absolutely. And that's it. That's the consistent theme, that slavery was a kind of communist enterprise. It was, of course, racially, even though initially, slavery wasn't necessarily as racial as it was based on economics and convenience. A lot of the initial slaves early on came from places even like Ireland. And then in the Caribbean, you had people coming from India. So you have a lot of, hence Kamala's dad. And anyone who has roots in the Caribbean, a lot of people don't know this, but Jamaica has a sizable Indian population. I mean, people from India, and also a sizable Chinese population. You can just go to YouTube and type in Chinese Jamaican or Indian Jamaican. You'll see people who look, like China, like they're from China, but speak with a Jamaican, the way they talk.
That's got to be a wild accent right there early on.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's just a raw Jamaican accent. It's because they've been there for hundreds of years, or over 100 years, 150 years, 170 years. So they look like they're from China, but they speak with a Jamaican accent. Then you have people who are, of course, mixed race on that island. I'm not trying to divert, but people who might be mostly Chinese, but have a little bit of black, or mostly Indian, might have some. And then there were Irish. So Jamaica was, but back to my point, slavery wasn't necessarily a racial endeavor in the beginning. It became one. There were laws around racism, but in the beginning it was all about just supply, demand, getting workers to do the work for you at a cheap rate. And wherever you could get slaves from, you could get slaves. Like I said, there were also Irish slaves in the Americas initially. So
Irish people were treated terribly early on in this country. There are signs that are left up on the East Coast. You can go into Boston and some of the older bars in Maryland, Connecticut, and other places where you'll see the signs. The owners left them up where it said "No Irish allowed" and all those types of things. The Irish people were treated horribly.
But slavery was about control. That's what it was about. And it was also about you work, I eat, essentially, as Dinesh D'Souza put it. You work, I eat. You work, and I tax the heck out of it. To the extent, I mean, let's be honest, the slaves worked. They were given rations of living quarters and kind of told what they could and couldn't do, but the overseers pocketed the revenue. And that's exactly what the Democrat Party of today advocates for. What they did, which was very brilliant, is they realized they couldn't win in an ever-changing culture. And even the South was changing. But by the way, I got to say, people still have the stereotypes about the South. They're very stuck in the past. I've spent a lot of time in the South. But as the South was changing and America was changing, what they did is they changed their method and they changed their messaging. But it's still that old communist line. Mm-hmm. Trust Big Brother. We'll take care of you. Give us your money. You work, I eat, and we'll take care of you. If you trust us and you let us tax the heck out of you, we will make sure you have, who was it that said you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. That's essentially it.
And you will be happy.
Yeah,
that's the thing, right? The Georgia Guidestones were recently destroyed, right? Somebody blew it up or something. and we know that the left is pushing issues, lifestyle, whatever, that basically lead to death and depopulation, while importing an entirely, I believe, to be a more subservient population that will be okay with being bird fed and given things because that's what they're used to. Where we're not having babies and to repopulate. A lot of people are just not having kids today. But the third world population that is being ushered into this country with the help of the Biden regime, they are. And keep in mind, we were held in our homes and basically told we weren't essential and we couldn't go outside and you had to get vaccinated to keep your job or to stay in the military. These people coming across our southern border are not being told the same thing. There are people that wait for months, over a year. I've known people in my lifetime that needed the assistance. They needed rent vouchers. They needed Section 8. They needed these things. And they were put on lists for long periods of time. Well, they were bypassed by the immigrants that just came into this country 10 minutes ago. And I think that's what the population of Chicago is dealing with right now, more so than I think anywhere else outside of like New York, that they're also being. So when you take a look at the tenets of the left, they're not here to help you. I believe what we're watching them do is assist in the downfall of the country, because once it's once it's burnt to ashes, they can step in and remake it in their own image, the one that they want it to be. Which is the reason why our culture is in this upheaval right now. But the thing is how do we fight that? How do we counter the counterculture at this point? And where is the line to which we have to say, don't cross this one?
Yeah, well, so real quick to your earlier point, and then I'll answer that one. How someone like a John Lewis could fall for it and could think that the Democrat Party had changed. And by the way, when you look at the history of the Democrat Party and the Black American population voting for them, it was even before the civil rights legislation that you saw a mass migration of Black Americans from the Republican Party to the Democrat Party. That had a lot to do with just that the promise of we'll take care of you, like the slave. It's a slave master message. Trust me, I'll take care of you. And they never delivered, and then it becomes tradition. You find similar things in the American non-religious Jewish, more secular Jewish populations will vote for the Democrats up into the 80 percentile,
which is wild to me now because of the amount of anti-Semitism is absolutely
But it varies. It varies like among religious. The Hasidic. You're not going to find they're obviously going to support Trump. They're going to support the conservatives, and even from a moral perspective, a political perspective, Israel, they are going to partner with the conservative party. But among the secular, it just becomes, man, just certain things when you have an isolated sort of minority group, certain things become so entrenched in the tradition. And it's almost like when you challenge those inclinations, the person becomes offended as if you are questioning their very identity and the advice and tradition of their parents. Are you saying my parents were wrong and my grandparents were wrong? Is that what you're telling me? Yes, I'm telling you your parents were wrong. But that's a hard pill to swallow.
Words are not violence, and challenging each other on our ideas is the very thing that helps us grow as a society. When you're not allowed to have civil discourse, when you're not allowed to question, I say fear those who you can't question. Fear those who you cannot call out on their. Tulsi Gabbard is a great example of this. She just called out Kamala about a month or two ago, and she was put on a terror watch list, the Quiet Skies program.
I saw that. And that to your other question. Now, this is a great segue. When is enough enough? Enough has been enough.
Thank you.
Enough has been enough. And that was one of the things I would always kind of have conversations with the few people who know what I do and who I work for, a few family members, and I would tell them, they would see a story come out or something, and they would say, what, Mr. X, what's going to happen? What's the point? You're doing all this work, right? You guys are doing all this work. You're exposing it. Boom, 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 boom. By the way, never mind. But yeah, so you're exposing all this. what's going to happen? What difference does it make? And I would always tell them, it's not our job as an undercover journalist or whatever to get people to make the reaction. It's your job to make it something happen as a result. Our job is to present the facts, to expose what was hidden. It's up to the American people, whether it's calling their government offices, taking to the streets and protest. And the left are good at that. The left are good at galvanizing. Yeah, they'll galvanize their numbers.
They get the names on the petitions. They actually go fight for these things. But a lot of that is due to money received from outside of this country by the Soroses and that sort of thing that are paying these organizations and these people and propping them up. The useful idiots of
and it's not just the Soroses, man. There are actually, as you probably know, foreign governments that are funding a lot of these progressive causes.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
Big time.
That question I'll give you, Tony, excuse me, before we get out of here is just recently, I think 3 days ago, Biden was meeting with world leaders in his own home. And we're talking about Pennsylvania. We're talking about his house. We're talking about leaders coming from foreign countries, even I believe some adversarial countries. Now he's on his way out. There are 2 attempts against Trump's life. All of these things are going on, and he's having secret meetings with world leaders. What do you make of that?
And the signal broke up a little bit. You said you're talking about Biden meeting with secretly with world leaders
at his house. Literally.
Look, I'm telling you, man. We already know that prior to Biden's presidency, he, through his son's dealings with these foreign governments in the Ukraine and in China, he's been in their pockets. See, it's so funny. All the things that they're guilty of, they accuse their political opponents of being in the back pocket of Russia. It's actually Biden that has a proven history of his family has benefited from dealings with these foreign governments, and he himself has personally benefited. And he's in there. I can't speculate. There are certain things I know that you find out when you do the kind of work I do that I'll never tell anyone.
Can you share a revelation with something that you could share with us that you think most people don't know, that should know, that you maybe can shed some light on as far as
anything like that? I don't know if I don't know when the time would be. There may be a time when I can come out and say a lot of things. There are definitely things that people don't know that I am privy to. It's interesting on this job. It's so interesting. You find out a lot of stupid stuff that probably a tabloid would pay money for. For example, the sexual proclivities and sexual orientation of certain people in the media and the government. Like, I found out a lot of people's personal business because I was around a lot of them and a lot of their friends. I don't know why I sounded like Trump when I said that. Like a lot of these, but I was around a lot of these people, a lot of their friends.
Do this, man. You have to take your hands.
I know. That's exactly it. But you get around a lot of these people, you find things out. But we never made that a story because it's not really, it doesn't matter. But yeah, you find out a lot of things like that. But you also find out occasionally, you hear things, you find things out from sources, or sometimes something will get squashed because it's just like a story. It's just, I don't know, man. Maybe I have to watch my steps. But yeah, there are things I know. And maybe the time will come for me to come out and say things. I'll put it like this, guys. Pray. Just pray.
Yeah,
pray,
absolutely.
Because you know what? According to the writing on the wall and the people that we're dealing with, they're not going to let Trump win again. They're just not. They're not.
No. Well, they're going to do everything in their power, not in nothing. I think because, is off the table.
And it's not just the uniparty of America. It's not just the Republican and Democrat establishment. It is the world international alliance of nations do not want him in.
The better word I believe here, Mr. X, is New World Order.
Yeah, precisely. The New World Order does not want to be impeded or delayed in their agendas and in their deadlines. They have certain dates by which they want to achieve certain things. They're moving at a certain acceleration, and Trump is like he's like a rod in the cogwheel that gets in the way and prevents it or slows it down. But God is sovereign. God is greater than world leaders. God is greater. As a matter of fact, he sets them up and he takes them down. God is greater than plots, plans, schemes. So pray for, and also pray for these wicked world leaders. Pray that maybe by God's grace they would wake up and stop being wicked. And I'm gonna tell you the main thing to pray for. Here's my pray for whistleblowers. Pray that people's consciences will be pricked. It's amazing how well secrets are kept between maybe 100 or 50 people, and not one person in that group felt some kind of way and couldn't sleep at night. Pray that God keeps people, kind of like with Herod, right? He couldn't sleep. Pray that God like pricks the consciences of people, and so that they can't sleep and they have to get it off their chest. There were things done in 2020 that I'm aware of. There's information that I know even about the election in 2020 that I think maybe the time will come to
Stay tuned
present
for that, guys. Stay tuned for that.
Yeah,
Don't miss the politics and religion show.
Yeah, politics and religion show.
Mr. X is gonna make some of these things known eventually, and you guys are going to be privy to it here on the Patriots Prayer Network. Anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Just tune in to Politics and Religion. Check out Clarity Speaks, again with a Z. Again, a relatively new platform. We appreciate the Patriot Prayer Network for giving us this opportunity. Relatively new platform. We're just hoping that we can get some interesting conversations and also break some news. Again, I'm privy to certain things that I would love to break. And I think that this would be that Patriot Prayer Network is a great platform to break some things. And some of it's pretty big. You know, right now I'm sitting on some stuff, some information. And I'm just really kind of prayerfully considering how to expose what I've got. But I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to make any assumptions, but it may just be that I just release it for the sake of this country and the world, that this stuff needs to be known.
We got an election coming up.
Yeah.
And people need they say 33% of people, after they would poll, that they would have voted a different way had they known the laptop story was real. That 33% would have swung the election. Forget any of the other weird things that took place. That alone was enough to change the result of the election. So if it's things like that, I would implore you, use your judgment. Only you know what you're sitting on. Only you know what we have. But if it can in any way help people to make up their minds or grab people from the other side and just actually make them actually woke, I would caution you to search your soul and release that the right way and as soon as you can.
Absolutely. There are some considerations to be made, but as soon as some of those things can be taken care of, it will come out. And I trust before the election, it has to. There's really, and not a day before, but I mean, with enough time for it to actually have an impact. But there are certain things and other individuals that sort of have to be. I have to cross those T's and dot those I's to make sure, that we're good to go. But yeah, absolutely, it's gotta come out, guys. And fight the good fight. Do not give up. Speak the truth. And listen, if you need to take to the streets and protest, or you need to, write letters or emails or make phone calls, do that. Because if you don't do it, who's going to do it? That's my last word for them.
Peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. That's exactly what Trump
peacefully
said.
And patriotically. Absolutely.
Yeah, peacefully and patriotically. So, guys, thank you so much for coming and joining this conversation between I and Mr. X, which I believe there will be many, many more of here to come in the future. Check him out on the Politics and Religion podcast, which will be airing on PPN very, very soon. I'm aware that Clarity Speaks is a little under the weather, so hopefully she's feeling better and we can get this thing going and get some of these episodes released. We will be putting out time and day for their podcast to hit the Patriot Prayer Network pretty soon. I assume within the next week or two, we will be posting that time And Mr. X, thank you so much. And as usual, the silent majority, you need to stop being silent and stand your ground. Evil will never retreat willingly. It must be beaten back. Thank you guys for joining us here on the Patriots Prayer Network. We'll see you again next time.
Trading good for evil.
This is the Patriots Prayer Podcast. It's a tremendous show, one of the greatest shows in the history of the world.
This is Bryson Gray, and you are watching the Patriots Prayer.
Soon on the Patriots Prayer Network. Thank you all.
America's falling, they all say. Yeah,